thank you so much for sitting down with California Courier. Let me just walk through your names, and you guys are a part of the Creek Team OC.
Correct.
So what is your name?
I'm Brent Linus.
Bethany and Rob.
I'm Rob Beard.
So just tell me a little bit about how this whole thing kicked off.
Well, I moved to San Juan Capistrano in 2022. And prior to that, I was living in Point Loma, which is right at the terminus of the San Diego River. The San Diego River lets out between Point Loma and Mission Beach. And that creek, or that river, is full of life. In fact, there's ospreys flying around, and it's a real estuary and has real life to it. When I moved to San Juan Capistrano, I would run the trail that's right here, down to the beach and back from my house. And when I first moved here, it was really green because it was about June. And a few months later, it was dead. And at the time, I didn't put it together, because a lot of times plants in California are seasonal, right? And they'll go dormant in the summer because there's no water. Well, it wasn't until last year that I really had definitive proof that someone was spraying the creek, because there's a split up the creek where it splits between San Juan and Trabuco Creek. One of the creeks had been sprayed and the other one was not. And there was a clear line of dead vegetation and live vegetation. And at that point I knew someone was spraying just a massive, massive amount of herbicide. So the first thing I did was go to my city councilor and the mayor of San Juan Capistrano, John Campbell, and we got a coffee and came down to the creek and I showed him. And he was skeptical at first, but once he saw it, that line, he's like, oh man, he's like, someone's doing this. And he's like, I don't think it's the city, but write us an email and then we'll send it on to the county. And so that's exactly what they did. And the county referred me to OC Public Works. And I got a call like right away from Brian Glenn, who runs this program, asking, well, why are you asking about this? What are you curious about? Yeah, we do spray. It's all very safe though. Everything's fine. And so I said, well, that sounds good, but I don't understand why. So I'd like to get some more documentation. And so he set up a call with his boss, Amanda Carr, who's the deputy director at OC Public Works. And we had a call that I would probably say is contentious, right? She said, look, we have to do this. We have a right to do this. We have a permit. It's authorized, and we do this for flood control. And I said, well, you're killing everything in the creek, right? Like for miles, it's like 5 million square feet in one creek. It's from here to where they stop spraying is almost 4 miles. And we just did not agree, right? And so I said, well, look, if you could send me the records of your last spray, it would be great if we could meet at the creek. And to their credit, they met me at the creek about 3 weeks later. And it was myself and a neighbor, and we showed up at Descanso Park where the two creeks merge. And they showed up with about 3 deputy directors, 3 people that actually do the spraying. There was probably 6 or 7 people from OC Public Works that showed up. And they just proceeded to gaslight me, is the best way I could put it. They're like, look, this is a healthy ecosystem. They said, this is a healthy ecosystem, and what we're doing here is for flood conveyance. And I don't, you don't have the educational pedigree to understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That was, in so many words, exactly what they were telling me. Like, this man has a PhD. Do you have a PhD? I'm like, no, but I know how Roundup works. And they gave me all their testing, and we left the meeting saying like, agree to disagree. Like, and they're like, you're really going to disagree with all of us? And I said, yeah. I mean, I don't agree that cattail reeds are going to cause people's homes to flood, right? I don't agree that you have to kill the entire channel to minimize or to maximize flood prevention. It seems like you guys are doing this because it's easy. And so at that point, they referred me to an Army Corps of Engineers study and said, you need to read this report. And it's actually hosted on the Orange County Public Works website. So I downloaded it and I read it. And I used AI because it's like 450 pages. And I queried with ChatGPT, like, show me the sections that talk about vegetation in the channel, this, that, and the other. And so I spent a whole weekend going through this report. And it was unequivocal. The report said that what the county was doing was wrong. like dead wrong. Removal of impediments to flow, they said do not remove all the vegetation in the creek. There's no benefit to it. It doesn't decrease flood risk. It actually increases it because it can cause the levees to fail because the water moves so quickly along the bottom of the creek, the levee will erode. And so I wrote this really lengthy email and I sent it back to the county. Crickets, no response, right? A week later, I said, hey, I'm looking for a response to this. And they're like, well, we'll get back to you. So then by then, it had been about 2 months. And they're like, well, that's really not what this report says. You're just misreading it. And, you need to just basically move on and forget about this, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, I wanted to meet Supervisor Foley. And I had Supervisor Foley's staff on email this entire time. And
you had CC'd them?
Oh, yeah, they were on it the whole
Okay.
time. Both Foley and her chief of staff, Alyssa Napuri, and they were on. And so around December, I started emailing them saying, like, hey, I'd like to set up a meeting. And someone got back to me and said, well, we really want to see what OC Public Works says. And then nothing. And then I said another email, hey, I'd like to set up that meeting. Then it was Christmas time. After Christmas, I said, hey, Happy New Year. Let's set up this meeting. No response. I sent another email. I'm getting a little bit annoyed at this point, right? And they're like, listen, we have a very large backlog of constituents that need to meet with us. And so we'll get to you when we get to you, basically. And so then I started calling. And so I started calling them. And I called maybe 3 times, spoke, very emphatically that they need to meet with me. And this is going to turn into a big problem if they don't.
Yeah.
No response. And so finally, I just wrote an email to all of OC Public Works and to Supervisor Foley, just basically saying, you guys have ignored me. You've said that like my opinion doesn't matter. Supervisor Foley, you and your staff have done an incredible job at avoiding any contact with me whatsoever. And I'm going to go public with this information now, right? And then I signed it, the Creek team. I just made it up on the spot. And that evening, I started an Instagram channel. And I just started posting the facts that I had learned just about this creek.
Mm-hmm.
And it started trickling and growing a little bit. And then that following Tuesday, when I had like 200 followers and they were starting to see people asking a lot of questions, Foley staff messages and says, hey, we can get you in for a 20-minute meeting in about a month and a half. And I just didn't respond because at that point I felt like they had made clear that they actually don't want to hear from me. They have no interest in like learning my opinion on this or looking at what I had found as a constituent. And so I just kept educating the public. That was the choice I made. And from there, Bethany contacted me.
Okay, so you reach out to him.
So I heard about this through word of mouth, and somebody had sent me one of his videos.
Okay.
And I was follower 10. I was the 10th follower on his Instagram.
Yeah.
And I started just kind of looking into everything that he was saying was happening. And I was really skeptical. I said that there's just no way. This can't be happening. There can't be this kind of lack of leadership and oversight. So I went and I found all the different contracts and permits, and I printed everything out because I wanted to try to digest it and understand all of it fully. And the more that I read, the more I realized he was right, 100%, that there was some interesting stuff that was going on.
And then when did Rob get involved?
I got involved, I think, at the start of the year. We were in the mix of doing public records requests to OC Public Works.
Yeah.
Looking into their testing methods, sampling, all the timing they do, chain of custody.
Yeah.
I took it to heart when they said to me, you don't have the scientific pedigree to question us, right? So I found Robert, who has, tell him your background.
I have a background in biochemistry and infectious disease research.
Okay.
So, and I've got my master's at Johns Hopkins in drug discovery. So I've worked with a lot of these analytical test methods before, a lot of the tests they would do for herbicides. So I know what lab standards you need to maintain to have accurate results.
And most importantly, he can read the results in a way.
Yeah, can read them because they're not put in a way that makes it pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like you look at this, and if you don't know what every single 2-digit acronym is, you're not going to know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
So, and
this made the core of Creek Team. I mean, it's essentially the three of us that drive almost everything that Creek Team does right now.
And so did you guys, when the town hall happened, did you guys reach out to Foley and say, hey, we want to set something up, or how did that work out?
That's an interesting question. So because Foley had kind of irked me in ignoring me, we made this about like, hey, this creek is in Foley's district, right? This is Foley's district right here. Contact Supervisor Foley if you're frustrated about this, or if you feel that OC Public Works should not do this. And for weeks, we ran that, right? And so she put out a statement. I'm against herbicide glyphosate in our creek, and glyphosate won't be used in this creek again. And it really infuriated me because it was doublespeak. It was making a distinction without a difference. Because really what she was saying is that we're just not going to use that one herbicide, but we're going to use all the other ones. And so the real reason that the county had stopped using glyphosate in this creek is because they were under investigation at the time by CADPR, by the Department of Pesticide Regulations.
Okay.
But Foley took it as like, something that she could put out there that actually wasn't any real action.
Yeah.
And so I put a video out immediately and excoriated that statement. And it just kept growing. Like we were like, at that point, we were almost like a flywheel. We were gaining hundreds of followers. And then we put out Ecocide versus San Diego, which was a comparison of that river in San Diego that I lived by when I was in the military, and San Juan Creek. And it went completely viral, right? And that's what really, I think, scared them at that point, because we were getting a ton of traction. And so that's when Foley decided, she had never spoken to us before that at all. She just said, I'm having a town hall on this.
And she invited you guys on the panel because you guys were both sitting up there.
Well, not until that day.
Oh.
Not until that day. So we had a happy hour the day before. And the happy hour, her campaign staff showed up there. And I think they thought that they could maybe diffuse it, or like, find some way to read the room. And what they found was that people were very angry. There were 30 people there. They basically got yelled out of the room. And so we said, look, if you want to have any chance of this being like a civil thing tomorrow, because people are really angry, we need to meet before this town hall. Like Creek Team, Foley's team. Because we had never spoken to her prior to that town hall. And so that next day, we got an invitation to meet with Foley prior to the town hall. And that was the only reason we were on that stage. But the meeting went horribly. It was terrible. It was super contentious. We almost walked out. She said that the creek was all concrete, the base of it. And I said, if we're not operating on the same fact on what is going on in that creek, I don't know how we can even agree on a go forward plan.
Yeah.
And so then we had the town hall.
And tell me a little bit about the town hall, how you guys felt. I mean, I watched, it was over 2 hours, almost, I think a little bit over 3.
Yeah. So she set it up, I think, to exhaust people. I don't think she realized 200 plus people were going to show up and really want answers. So she had a whole panel of professionals that were going to sit there and try to sell a story on why their program is good and why their program is safe. And time after time, it backfired, because the people weren't allowed to talk. The people that were there trying to express their concerns, they were told to sit down, be quiet, listen to us. And I think that just fueled the fire.
Yeah. At one point, OC Public Works was presenting demonstrably false information, right? Like, it was demonstrably false. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to say and educate everybody that this is not correct. And she said, this is my meeting. And the crowd went, chewed that up and spit it out. I mean, it really, I think it showed that like the meeting wasn't for us. It was not like to educate us on what was going on in the creek. It was to make the county look good, right? And that they're responding to this. It was just a bunch of information that actually was not relevant at all.
There was a lot of unrelated presentations from OC Public Works. And on top of the changing of names of studies to remove San Juan from the name, to act like it wasn't for San Juan. OC Public Works Director Amanda Carr presented data that was not valid, that could not be used based on the lab testing. They let a sample go past holding requirements, and the lab marked it and said, per the EPA guidelines, you can't get any data from this lab. She took it and just said it was negative and ignored that and presented it at the town hall as if it was good data to use.
Yeah.
And it's
And Robert
can't do
had
that.
this brilliant moment because one of the things Foley did was she said she was going to hand out cards, question cards, and she would read them and then let the panel respond. So there was no real Q&A, right? There was no real Q&A. And she skipped Robert's question card.
She kept taking out my question cards.
Yeah, and
oh wow.
and so Robert just stood up and said, "Hey, you missed my card, but you just presented false data." And Robert, it's on our Instagram, pointed out what it is. And Amanda Carr readily admitted, "I did it because it was only 1 day past the holding time," and admitted that she falsified the data.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was so indicative of how the county looked at its residents.
Yeah.
They really are not interested in like what we think.
Yeah.
It's, they're the smart people, we're not, was the overwhelming impression everybody in that town hall got.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, she created this board with all of you guys, I believe, on it, but have you guys gotten any leeway from that? Like, has there been any update?
Have not met yet. So we have had meetings that were scheduled, and then she delays. So we haven't had a meeting yet. We actually haven't been formally invited yet.
Yeah, she's invited other groups.
We know other groups that have received an official email saying that we would like you to be a part of this oversight committee. We've received absolutely nothing. So we don't really know what's going on.
Do you guys have any guesses as to why you guys are being excluded when you guys are really the ones that kind of kicked this whole thing off?
I mean, I have a lot of guesses. I think she wants to maintain control. She keeps painting this picture that this is her idea, that she's always had this concern. And now that the community cares, she refuses to acknowledge why we're talking about it now. She refuses to even say a word about Creek Team.
Nothing. Yeah.
So she wants to maintain she wants to maintain the control. That's something that's most important to her. Not fixing the problem, it's her image.
Yeah.
And so during that town hall, she also promised to stop spraying here, where we are at.
Correct.
And tell me a little bit about now what you guys have found out within the last week of the promise to stop spraying.
Well, I think one of the important things is that this herbicide campaign, it is ecocide. Like this is a dead habitat.
Yeah.
As far as you can see, right? I mean, the intention is to make sure that it actually, and they told me this, OC Public Works told me this, and I have witnesses to this, that they do it to prevent the establishment of endangered species in these channels, because then they would have to deal with the regulation thereof, right? So their intent is to kill the habitat. The most shocking thing is that this is only 2% of what the county does across the whole county in terms of spraying.
Okay.
So it's hundreds of thousands of gallons across the entire county. Foley agreed, I think, through gritted teeth, because we told her to in that meeting prior, you need to go in there and say that they're done spraying in San Juan Creek. And so they agreed to it here and only here. But the other thing they agreed to was...
Well, real quick, they're only temporarily stopping it.
Okay.
So
That's
it might
right.
only last
Yeah.
a year to two.
It's
OC
a
Public
pilot
Works
program.
Yeah, OC Public Works is doing a study, just so happenly, about this channel. So they're waiting for the results of that to come back.
And they said that study was started in 2020. Was that the same study, or was it a different study?
Well, the study in 2020 that they started in 2020, I think, is to take this creek and rebuild the flood control capacity of it for a 100-year storm event. But I know that doesn't involve any use of vegetation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just obvious. And they've never shared this study with the public, even though it's been in the works for like 6 years now.
Yeah.
The problem, too, is that Foley and OC Public Works, in front of everybody, committed to public notice of spraying creeks. That's what they said. Because one of the things that makes people so angry is that when you spray 3,000 gallons of herbicide, glyphosate, in this creek, it's within a few hours in the ocean, right here. It goes right down the creek, right into the water, right? Obviously, it gets into the soil, and then the soil builds up, and that eventually gets washed into the water. Well,
And notably, they haven't tested the soil, is that correct? And they've only tested
No.
the water.
They've never done any sediment or soil testing,
Okay.
yeah,
and
they
they've only
admitted that in the
tested
town.
for one ingredient in the formulations when there's a lot more.
Yeah. And so Foley agreed in that. Well, we'll start warning people before we spray. So they hadn't sprayed actually until this last Wednesday. And Creek Team's grown now to this point where we have volunteers all over the county. When they're walking the creeks, they're keeping an eye on the creek. And so we got a warning just 2 days ago that they were spraying San Diego Creek. And we raced up there and there was no warning. There was no signage, there was no, and it was a windy day like today, except the wind was blowing right, so where the herbicide would be drift right onto the bike path and the running path, and people were running by, kids were there, and nesting birds, and so we got it all on video. We went up there, we felt like we had a real obligation to inform the public that this was still happening.
Yeah.
And that's in Foley's district.
Yeah.
That's in Foley's district, and Foley promised that people would know, and she didn't say it in the town hall, but I think in another interview, she said that they would stop spraying in her district. I'd have to check that though. I want to make sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But you had reached out to her afterwards.
Oh yeah, Bethany sent an email.
Okay.
So we reached out to several people that day.
Yeah.
We reached out to the Department of Pesticide Regulation, the Ag Commissioner. We reached out to CDFW. They sent an investigator from the Ag Commissioner's office. They sent a warden from CDFW. So they all went down to go and see what was happening, because we had all the footage from the nesting birds and everything. So we know that there are now investigations looking into what's going on. Foley's office responded saying that they didn't know it had happened. They feigned ignorance for the whole situation.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, because there's so much heat on this right now. Is OC Public Works, do they have any respect for any of the supervisors? Right? Like they did that yesterday. It was almost like they were acting with impunity, in my opinion, or excuse me, on Wednesday. They they're acting. It's almost like they're off the reservation, in my opinion.
Well, and I mean, it's one step further. In order for them to even spray, they have to have active permits. And there was a permit that expired in March that we don't think that they've extended. So they don't have the right to even spray at all.
Yeah.
That's per CDFW in our meeting with them yesterday. They told us that.
I want to get into the science side a little bit, because some people might not know what herbicides are and what glyphosate is. Can you tell me, just like plain English, kind of what this is?
Yeah, herbicides and products like Roundup, which contain multiple herbicides. Roundup contains an active ingredient called glyphosate, as well as other chemicals that are designed to kind of bind to organic molecules and matter, and basically break it down and kill life. But focused mainly on vegetation.
Yeah.
Now, there's links with it being absorbed into the sediment and in the water and lasting for years and years, building up over time. It gets into the food cycle. So animals keep eating other animals that have pesticide. It builds up, and you get exposed to it by being in the water here at the lagoon or the ocean, and it can have negative health effects on you as well.
There was one man at the town hall that had notably pointed out that, I believe it was his son, that had
Skylar.
non-Hodgkin's, I'm butchering
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes, thank you. And have you guys heard from people that you've connected with about these stories like this?
So many.
Yeah.
We actually have a group coming to our event tonight. I think there are 13 or 14 families that all live in the same area that all have rare cancers. They're going to be coming tonight.
Wow.
People that they walk their dogs up and down and come down with all these different cancers, Parkinson's. The list, like I have a whole folder of all of these people that are reaching out that are in close proximity saying, I've wondered about this and I'm suffering. And they've all been individualized in silos, and now they're all coming together. So it's sad and crazy to see. But
What I would like to see is that I'm really concerned actually about the surf community. Surfers, a lot of great breaks in Southern California are right off the mouths of creeks and rivers, right? Because they build a sandbar and it can create a nice point for the break. And one thing we hear over and over again, because we go and we speak to a lot of these surf groups, is the overwhelming number of cancer diagnoses in these groups. And I'd love for someone to do a real study on the incidence of cancer in surfers versus the general population in Southern California, because I think it'll show what we're all concerned about is that these are just little conveyors of pollution right out into the ocean. And the thing that happens is when you kill everything in this creek, there's no biofiltration. And what happens, the water superheats. And then the water grows bacteria because it's very warm. And it becomes anaerobic, right? Because as the water increases in temperature, all this, it has all these knock-on effects. And by the time that water gets out into the ocean, it's a total mess. And there's, the Santa Ana River is like a jacuzzi when it reaches the ocean. And so there's all these secondary and tertiary effects to killing an ecosystem like this.
Yeah.
Out of convenience. I mean, this is killed out of convenience to OC Public Works. Yeah. It's cheap, it's easy, and it's just the way they've always done it, and they're going to continue to do it, and they have no interest in hearing otherwise from anybody.
Going back to that town hall, because Foley had said something that I had written down, and it was really interesting to me, was that when you guys brought up the concern about going into the ocean, she had said that, oh, well, by the time it gets to the ocean, it dilutes a lot. But then she circled back to the sea lion study that they're doing, and my thought process was, well, if you're studying it and sea lions are out in the ocean, it can't dilute that much if you guys find something like that. So, I mean, Rob, you also said that you had found studies elsewhere.
Yeah, there's studies that are finding pesticides and herbicides in the middle of the ocean these days. Like, it's, especially at the mouths of rivers, they are finding pesticides there. And on top of, there's urban runoff of pesticide use, but we saw it with they stop spraying the creek, it starts to grow back. So that's not the main driver of the contamination that reaches the mouth of the river. But their argument of it's diluted to the point where it doesn't matter because of how big the ocean is, that's just false.
And do you guys think that there was a reason why, Amanda Carr was very poignant in that town hall of kind of telling you guys that these levels that they put of herbicides and they dilute it to spray, that these are okay levels for people to be around?
Show me a study that says it's safe there. Like, there's nothing out there that says that's an okay level.
I would also say that they gamed the testing that they used to justify that. It's apparent, this testing here in this creek, they sprayed and then they waited 4 days to test. And we don't actually know where they pull the water from because their testing didn't have GPS locations on it, which is a requirement of the permit. So we think that the testing is actually structured to pass. It's done and structured in a way to pass. And so we don't trust the testing. And furthermore, the reason they spray with so much glyphosate is because it has the smallest test burden per the permit that they are using that's 13 years old. So they can spray 500 times a year and test 6.
Yeah, if they're only using glyphosate, it has a special exception where they only have to test one spray application a year, but it's dependent on the spray site. So the different rivers, like Santa Ana River versus this river should be tested separately, but you only have to test them once per year, even if you do 500. And the test cycles that they're supposed to do is a before, during, and after. So it's 3 individual tests, but one application for 500 events.
Yeah, one test.
One test.
So like 99% of the time they spray, they never test. So
this site actually never, the last 10 years, they've never tested here once until last year.
Wow.
It had never been tested here.
Yeah.
I was watching some videos on glyphosate, specifically from the ag culture, because that's really when it picked up, was people started using it. The guy that was speaking, he was saying that plants eventually find their way around glyphosate. Like, nature will always prevail over what is being used. So eventually you have to use more glyphosate and herbicides in order to kill off the weeds that are in there. Have you guys found that at all as well, or?
That makes sense.
I've read a lot about it, building up a resistance, and that's part of the reason the approach they take is switching up the herbicides.
Okay.
Because they'll build up a tolerance to it.
Well, if you look around what we're in right now, the only thing that's growing is weeds.
Yeah.
Right? The first thing to bounce back is always the weeds. So when you kill the entire habitat, you have to go back after that and then restore it with the correct plants if you want them to repopulate.
Yes.
In a way, we're creating like mutant weeds over here, just evolving them to be resistant of our normal method of getting rid of them.
It's not all that different to like bacterial
people taking antibiotics all the time.
Exactly.
When they have going to create these super
bugs like MRSA, right?
And when we were talking, this was a county issue, but you had also pointed out that this creek specifically, and I think it was brought up at the town hall, is something that's very interesting because it funnels millions of dollars from the state with the fish ladder. So can you guys tell me about what the fish ladder is, what the heck they were talking about?
So there's an endangered species called the steelhead trout. that has historically frequented this creek. And right now there is an area that's upstream where it is impossible for the trout to get above it. So there is a group that has been coming up with an idea for like 20 years, very long time, to build a fish ladder to enable the trout to move upstream. And it's been $26 million or so acquired to move this project along.
From National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency.
in
So it's a federal grant.
2024, it was about 24 million alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
The issue is that these nonprofits, so there's another nonprofit that got money to rehabilitate the estuary because it's dead. Both of those nonprofits know what the county was doing. And they are afraid to speak up because they have to go to the county for permits, right? And they're afraid to cross the county. And so they'll take the money and do the work, even though the fish have to migrate through a parking lot to get to a fish ladder. And, the riparian habitat here is super important to our migrating trout. Mm-hmm. But, I'll just say it, the one cow trout is the one that got the grant for the fish ladder. They had no interest in helping us. I asked for their help. They denied it.
So you've made warnings. I mean, I know, Rob, we spoke before. You've made warnings in emails, and Bethany, I'm sure you've done it the same to everyone to kind of warn them about, hey, this is what is going on. You're killing your endangered species, which you would think that they would care.
That was literally one of my first approaches. I'm like, I need to tell these people. They must not know this is happening, or they'd be really upset. And the resistance and hesitancy was really surprising to see until I realized that they were scared. They didn't want to lose their funding. They didn't want to not be able to progress things. They knew the county was going to come back one way or another.
I think that's the interesting thing about Creek Team is we haven't raised a single dollar, not a dollar. And we want to keep it that way as long as possible. Even though people have offered to write us grants and do this, that, and the other, we're essentially unimpeachable as long as we have, we're not taking money.
Yeah.
And so there's no recourse against a movement, right? And because we have no money, it's very hard for a group like OC Public Works or the supervisors to find a way to stifle us.
Yeah.
It's been powerful.
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. And speaking of being scared, because I wanted to talk to you guys about, so when I had talked to Brent, I said, hey, we want to do our own samples. I want to test them outside and go to different labs and see what, with the help of Rob, to kind of see what exactly they're supposed to be looking for. Our contact had the great idea of going to WEX so that anyone couldn't come back on us and say, hey, you're using a lab that we don't know about. Yeah, exactly.
It's WEC, right?
WEC, yeah. Sorry, WEC. And so I had gone to WEC. I had gone on a call. I was 20 minutes away. And I had sent him over the Excel sheet and I said, hey, we need to run this whole thing.
Oh, no.
And he goes, yeah, these are really bad things that a lot of people are looking for right now. So I said, great, let's find it. And he goes, okay, I hadn't seen the lab requirements on this Excel sheet. And he goes, do you know that is on the requirements? And I said, yeah, that's from the team that we're working with, but we want to go through you. You guys are a big lab. Let me know. And he goes, okay, as long as you're okay with using us. And I said, yeah, of course. I get there. And this was verbal that he told me, and I had the samples with me. And he goes, hey, so I passed this on to my sales team, and actually we are concerned about our contracts. And I went, I'm sorry, I was so baffled because I was like, one, this isn't something that you tell a reporter because this is the worst idea for me. And I said, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, it's not my call. And I understood. I was like, okay. He was like, it's the sales team and we just have contracts.
Wow.
And they're really concerned if it gets back to us. And I said, okay, even if we don't name you, are you okay with us going through? And he goes, yeah, it's just still no. So I went out, I called my team and I was like, hey, I can't believe that this has happened. And so I went through, I found the contracts of what labs are working with the county. and he had recommended Eurofin. So I went to Eurofin and I said, hey, I have this project. I took off the lab requirement. I said, I have this project I'm working on. I have the samples. Let me know if this is something that we can run through your lab. He comes back to me. I'll read you and we can put it up in the post-production.
Yeah.
He comes back to me. I send him the Excel sheet and he goes, okay, great. I sent it over to my team and I said, great. Someone else from his team goes, hi, Haley, based on the required analysis, Eurofins ET Southwest is not a good fit for this work, so I referred your request to Eurofins drinking water and wastewater labs. They informed us that unfortunately they are unable to assist with your project due to potential conflict of interest with contracted clients in the area. Sorry, we're unable to assist with this.
Wow.
Is the conflict of interest the truth? I mean, that's the real question. Like, if we tell the truth and it shows what OCPW has been showing is not, is that the conflict of interest? Because technically, it should be a third-party lab always showing the truth.
So isn't science? Science is science.
Yeah.
That's not an opinion. There should be a conflict of interest. It's just fact. What does this test say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why are they scared for some consequence from the other contracts?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
know
that
what's gonna
doesn't
be
make
in it.
sense.
They know we're testing for what they should have been testing for.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
expose what they've been hiding.
I mean, that was my thought. I know
And-
Eurofin has a subcontract. WEC was one of the ones that had the major contracts. And so I started going down the list because I was like, how many labs are going to deny me an independent study to just sample these things that we had gotten? And each one had referred me to WEC and Eurofin. Like, I have 5 right now listed up.
They won't do it.
No,
No.
they won't do it.
God.
And WEC
Yeah.
has not, I mean, looking at their data, I don't know why OC Public Works continues to use them when half of their data comes back with failed quality control results, broken bottles, tubes. Like, they're not even doing it at a good level. So I don't.
Yeah.
Right. I think it just shows. It really highlights the fear that this entire group has with crossing this water industry. Like, stormwater industry is enormous,
Yeah.
and OC Public Works writes the contracts. The environmental firms write the opinions, and they get the money. And WEC and these parts are part of that. And if you're coming in and bringing transparency into this group, I think that's a real threat. And I think that's the problem we're running into. I think it's probably we're going to have to depend on the universities
Yeah.
to do it.
Or an outside state at this point, because
Yeah.
I am racking my brain as to why each lab is unable to assist in a simple thing of looking at something for the benefit of the people here. It's not for the benefit
This
of
is for
anyone
public
else.
health.
Yeah.
You know, it shouldn't be public health should not be controversial.
Yeah.
You know.
And so, I mean, I guess that leads me back to the county of these connections. And Rob and I had talked about this a little bit, of this kind of legal pay for play that they do, where everyone is kind of in everyone's pocket. And anytime there's outside disturbances, I mean, you guys saw it at the town hall, like anytime there's questioning, it seems like they do gaslight you
Yeah.
and then also make you guys seem like it's fine, you just don't know. Like, you
Yeah.
can't know that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's set up by design. I mean, the 700-page contracts that we've gone through, it's circular language. There's an exception for this, you know, there's a special clause for that. And then once you kind of finally start to get into it, like all these incestuous relationships, I mean, it's bizarre.
This industry is big, it's large in California. It kind of includes stormwater management, flood control, and habitat restoration. So anything that's grouped into that kind of goes to the same kind of organization on a county level. Every county works together with, in these kind of non-governmental bodies, hire the same consultants, the same people that do the testing, the same ones that design everything.
Yeah. In fact,
And they're lobbied, you know, so Amanda Carr is in this organization called CASCA. It's a non-governmental body, but they write the regulations for a state level. They provide training to state regulators. They write the handbooks that the state regulators are going to use. They have all of the county representatives on a board that has other private institutions, private wealth management and environmental consulting is on this board with them. 40, 50 sponsors that pay these state or these county representatives pretty much, they don't pay them specifically, but they're on the same board.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that get the contracts from the county representatives that they share this board seat with.
Yeah.
And so WEC, and there's other ones like Physius in our community, they're our sponsors of this casca that Amanda Carr sits on. So they're all connected in a way.
Yeah, it's a cozy relationship. I mean, that's, unfortunately, I don't think it's unique to this world, but in this, it's very swampy.
Yeah.
It is.
No pun intended. I mean, it's, that Amanda Carr is the chair of the board of the group that helps lobby the group that's supposed to regulate OC Public Works is swampy.
Yeah, to
Right?
clarify,
And
this organization is lobbying on a state level. The governor and Senate, they're lobbying against bills like the California Clean Water Act, lobbying against it, lobbying against anything that will increase any government or any regulation.
Yeah.
And then she's at the same time on a county level supposed to enforce the regulations that she is lobbying against.
Yeah, the organization that she's the chair of
Yeah.
lobbies against.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And to our understanding, based on the reactions we got, none of the board of supervisors were aware of this conflict of interest.
Do you think that's true, or?
No.
I don't think that they have the wherewithal to dig that deep. We had to dig pretty deep to find that. It was quite a search to find that. So I think it's probably true that they didn't know. The more shocking fact is that they've not done anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the part that's disappointing. None of us have gone into this with this idea that the supervisors need to know everything all the time.
Yeah.
And we've had supervisors like Supervisor Sarmiento who have said, look, it's a huge county. We're dealing with all these issues, and we need citizens to come forward with issues.
Yeah.
And then we've had other supervisors that are like, stay in your lane, right? Don't bring this stuff up. It's not your job, right? That's Foley's attitude,
Yeah.
And Sarmiento and Foley are on the same team. They're both Democrats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not a partisan thing. And I think that's one of the things we want to talk about is like, none of what we're doing is partisan.
Yeah.
Wanting to have a healthy riparian habitat and limiting the amount of herbicides going in our ocean is not partisan,
Yeah.
right? It only becomes partisan when even then when certain supervisors disagree with us, we're going to call them out. Like,
Yeah.
we're not afraid of that. And it has nothing to do with party affiliation.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of that, you guys got a hold of Dixon, who is around here as well. Tell me a little bit about that, and who else has been in support of you guys ever since reaching out.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dixon's office has done a good job of trying to investigate in her capacity as an assembly member. Her chief of staff has been in contact, and I probably talked to them 10 times. We've had a lot of conversations with them. We hope, our goal is that, and we hope that Dixon will make a commitment to bring accountability to OC Public Works should she be elected, and that she helps us rewrite the policies that enabled this travesty in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're in discussions with her team about what we think that would take.
Yeah.
Because they're not experts on this. We have to kind of help them understand the issue. But they've been very open about that idea.
We've also talked to legislators. We've reached out to Catherine Blakespeare's office.
Okay.
They were also very concerned. They're hopefully going to be coming out with a statement sometime soon. We're going to each and every city in Orange County. We want to inform every council member, every city manager. The majority of the people that we've spoken with, they had no idea this was going on. So a lot of the cities are writing endorsements right now saying they stand behind what we're doing. We figure if all legislators on all levels are at least aware, they can be a part of the solution.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm most surprised about, especially after watching that town hall and how public it was and how upset you guys were, that Foley hasn't gone to Sacramento, because she pointed out that this is a state thing, right? You can't just stop and ban pesticides and herbicides. They can't stop it on her level. But I mean, maybe you guys have heard otherwise. My thought process on that would be, why not go to Sacramento and say, hey, these are my constituents that are really, really upset and concerned. And also, it's threatening them. and it's going into these waterways. It's destroying life out here. Why can't we as a state bring something up and get behind banning herbicides?
That's something we can do. It'll be a much bigger battle to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to a county level, we can absolutely make adjustments on a county level. It doesn't necessarily have to be a ban, but it can be a minimization. Marin County is a great example. They don't have glyphosate. They don't have herbicides. They have an organics first. A lot of the cities here in Orange County are organics first cities. Like they have the approaches that are they're in use. They've been in use for 6-7 years, and there's no reason the county can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, we're pragmatic. You know, like we're not saying that it's the full ban of herbicides in every use case. There may be some use cases where they have to do spot treatments for invasives or something, right? Like, but the problem is that it's herbicide first and herbicide only.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they just followed the law, which they're not, to be clear, they're not following their law or the permits. If they followed the law and the permits, we would not be here.
Yeah.
This issue would not exist.
Back to going on to a state level, I think that's a good avenue to actually explore that we should look at more, is because this problem is not unique to Orange County.
Yeah.
There's, every county in the state is following these NPDES permits.
Mm-hmm.
They share a lot of the same contractors, the same organizations, the same consulting is used in every other county. I know, for example, like, we're not the only county that sprays the Santa Ana River. Upstream is also sprayed. And a lot of other counties could probably look into or benefit from looking into this the same way we have. And on a state level, they'll find that this is not unique to Orange County.
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, I mean, you guys have probably talked to so many people at this point and so many residences that are concerned. What are you hearing from them about this issue?
A lot of concern. A lot of people just were unaware and they feel betrayed. And I think the biggest thing is that we get is gratitude. They're so grateful that somebody has exposed this and that somebody's fighting for it, because it's really hard. We've had 2 months now of battles, just fighting. And we do it because we care.
And this is also not your job, by the way.
No,
I'd like to point that out. You guys all have other jobs besides this.
But I mean, I lived in Orange County for 20 years. I lived in Irvine, Newport, San Juan. Like I've lived in these cities. I've lived by the water, and it matters to me. And it matters to everybody else too. So just for people to have someone that's fighting this battle, everyone's gotten behind us because they care.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of it, is that the public support is undeniable. And because of that, you can't ignore us. So it's given us, the people being behind us has given us a level of power that is troubling to a lot of people that we have talked to. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know, but they also can't just walk away, right? OC Public Works has. They've stopped communicating with everybody. They've stopped doing everything. But I think that because the public is behind us, and because people know we're acting with their best interests and like what we're doing is entirely altruistic, it gives us an incredible amount of power in the democracy.
Yeah.
Right? And that's been really, I don't know, for me, it's been really like fulfilling, fulfilling.
Yeah. How is the trust in something like OC Public Works or any type of city government? I mean, after dealing with Foley, after the town hall, like after all of this, what are your guys' takeaways from dealing with people like this?
I would say this. Okay. If there is a lack of civic engagement, I think, in America right now, particularly in wealthy areas like Orange County, because we have a very gilded life, right? Like we have this ability to say, hey, I just pay taxes for that. Or like, our city picks up our trash. And so sometimes we forget that democracy works when we're engaged, right? And these bureaucrats, I'm not trying to use that as like a nasty word, but these bureaucrats, if the people and the residents are not there, like in making them think about them, they will eventually think about themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's the issue I've noticed, is that we need to get, as a people, more engaged in like the civic oversight of our government.
Absolutely. So to piggyback on that, one of the things I've noticed is people really aren't aware. They're not familiar with these policies, and they're under this assumption that it's all being taken care of. So we're taking it one step further, and we're also doing a youth advocacy that's environmental policy education, waterway restoration. We want education across the board for everyone to be involved, as well as the youth, because it's important. I don't trust what's happening right now. Everybody has to be able to do checks and balances on these people.
I think if OC Public Works wants to rebuild trust with the people, because they've been potentially permanently tarnished by this, that if OC Public Works wants to rebuild that trust, there needs to be accountability.
Yeah.
They need to look at themselves in the mirror and actually say that they did something wrong, that they screwed up. And until that happens, we're not, Creek Team isn't resting. Yeah. Right?
The fact that OC Public Works can be so quiet and just disappear from everybody out of the light when they're a government agency paid by our tax dollars and they're not being held accountable, and the county's supervisors aren't really holding them accountable right now, is kind of something I think the public here needs to see and feel for themselves.
And we intend to expose it.
Yeah. Were you guys surprised by the pushback? I mean, from the very beginning, the lack of answers, the lack of communication.
You know what I was surprised by? The level of arrogance. I was shocked at that these, they're deputy directors, so I guess they've been in public policy for a while to get to that position. That they would treat like someone like me who's just asking honest questions with such disdain. Yeah. And I'm no putz. Like, I got my MBA, I'm a former military officer. Like, I went in intellectually prepared and studied, and they treated me like I was a fool. And that was a thing, and that's the thing that I just can't get over with Foley. Like, she did the exact same thing. It was the same attitude. And then I've run into other people in government that seem to be in it for the right reasons. Yeah. But we just had a conversation yesterday with Fish and Wildlife where one person on the call was only there to dismiss us. That was it. And I'll tell you, we let him know that that's not going to happen.
It's when there starts to be that pushback, that's when you need to lean in a little bit harder, because there's a reason there's pushback. There's a reason they're not authentic and forthcoming. They're hiding something. What that is, sometimes it takes a little more digging, but there's something there.
Well, it's a citizen's responsibility to find it. Really. I mean, like, we're the ones. Sunlight in government is civic engagement, and there's just not enough of it right now.
I think one of the biggest things that I was shocked on, kind of seeing, is the lack, kind of the incompetence or level of, on how bad their actual program was. Everyone thinks, they have scientists out there, or they have like the method down, they're doing it right. You go in and actually look at it, it's horrible. Like, they're not writing, they're leaving their forms blank. They're manipulating data. They're lying about test results. They're fabricating GPS coordinates. They're doing nothing right that if anyone did in a regulated industry, in like a private industry regulated by the FDA or a European Union agency, you'd get fired. You'd get nothing. You'd get nothing released to the public, like passed through FDA. Yeah. If you acted or performed the same way that OC Public Works is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite shocking how much pushback you guys have gotten, and also the pushback on the lab part was really interesting as well. And it's created I think a larger story, honestly, and it's almost comparable. We had talked about the DuPont issue, because it seems like the more that they hide, now maybe they aren't hiding anything, but the more that they appear that they're hiding, it leads people to think, well, what exactly are you afraid of? Yeah. And it's 100%. The lack of transparency.
I think that the DuPont issue was enormous in that it the chemicals that tainted those people's water really had profound effects on kids and adults. And this impacts millions of people, millions of people. Like, so the scale of this issue is just enormous. Yeah. It's just enormous. And it's an annual tragedy, right? This happens every year, twice a year, 150,000 gallons, boom, 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 boom. Decades of herbicide have built up in this soil. And that's why nothing's growing. That's why it's dead like this.
Does this waterway also go into people's water as well? I mean, I know that was a question at the town hall that was brought up.
It charges the same
It's in the watershed.
Their testing has
we
showed.
pump water out of right in between San Juan and Chirico Creek at Descanso Park. There is a water pumping station that pumps water directly below the ground here, back up.
Now their
they
testing has showed safe levels for like glyphosate and some herbicides.
But we honestly don't know exactly.
We don't know if they're testing for the right things to look for.
That's right. It may be that they don't know what to test for. Like, I do think the water district does a really good job, and they run a reverse osmosis system. But like anything, this will eventually get down to the water table.
Yeah. My last question for you, if I think of any others afterwards,
Good,
but
I'm
I know, I'm sorry. Is, I guess, what would your one message be to people out there that, you know, are wondering about what the heck is going on? What is this? And how do you learn about this? And how do you expand afterwards?
I think the one message I would have is to stay curious. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Most people, Aaron Brockovich says, people wait for permission to ask the questions. Don't wait. Ask them and be persistent. If you want to know something, just keep looking.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to piss off an OC Public Works employee who might get mad that you're asking questions about your health.
Yeah. I think for me, the thing that was like the biggest adjustment was like when I started Crete Team, like, and really started hammering public officials, it was kind of intimidating, right? I mean, because you're going after the machine. And what I realized, these are people just like us. They're not clothed in immense power that they can use against you, right? And so it is your obligation as a citizen to like stick your nose in government to find out what's going on, right? And so that's what I would recommend people do. If something doesn't look right, go ask the question. But you have to stay persistent. Like, the reason Crete Team is powerful is because every day we're doing something and researching something and posting something to keep people engaged and people energized. Because a lot of times what happens is people get engaged and then they tail off. Yeah. And that's what bureaucracy wants. They just want to grind you down. And if you play by their rules, the bureaucratic rules, they'll be like, we'll get to a meeting in like 4 months. Well, and then after that, another 2 months. And you need to do all these public records requests. And then you got to wait. And they just grind you down. That's the intent. So don't let them. Don't play by their rules, you know?
So I'm guessing you're not going to stop emailing Foley.
Well, I don't think, I've learned at this point that doing anything with Foley on this issue is a fool's errand. Yeah. So sadly, we just have to go around her. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that people are going to get aware of this, and they already have been. And I'm so glad that you guys are talking to people and about this issue and, you know, what the effects can be, because I just don't think that people really have dug into it that much. And if it is, it's kind of a niche thing right now. But yeah, it's just been an insane investigation on this part, which is crazy. I mean, props to you. Again, you guys all have different jobs. Like, outside of this isn't your job, but I think it's incredible to see what everyday people and you guys living here can do, and what the power of speaking up and like saying, hey, what are you spraying? Like, what is going on?